Hi. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 31st FESIG meeting. Today is the 15th of March, and I would like to then welcome everyone properly. Before I do that, I'm sharing screen right now, so I'm sorry. Okay, there we go. So here we are. This is the 31st FESIG meeting on Wednesday, the 15th of March, and we have FESIG here introducing our speaker, who is a returning speaker from the 27th meeting, and that's Kevin Hay. Well, welcome, Kevin, and it's so good to have you back with us, because you've got so much to share and so much knowledge that you would be imparting to the listeners, and we are so happy to have you back here. Of course, Kevin is the inventor of the mechanical alternating gyroscopic induction compression system. He's the only almost investigator to have used these materials to discover how to induct gravity into electricity. Now, isn't that wonderful? Right, I will stop sharing now, and I'm going to introduce, no, before I do that, okay, I have to read to you the meeting agenda now that is up on the screen. Okay, so that Kevin will be doing his talk, and after that, Fres will be presenting the Australian breakthrough. James not here yet, and Tom's not here yet, Stefan, Etienne, possibly they'll be joining us later, or if not, we'll just wrap it up earlier. Okay, Fres, you have something very exciting to present after Kevin. So now, then after that, we will adjourn the next meeting. We will adjourn to the next meeting on the 5th of April, when we're going to have James Gilliland of the ET Ranch with us. And won't that be exciting? All right. So I'm going to stop sharing screen now, and I will introduce Kevin properly. Kevin has been introduced on the 27th meeting, but here, because you wouldn't want to refer back to the last meeting he spoke in, so I'll just say very quickly that Kevin is an expert in cannabis, okay, and his current expertise is now in cannabis production. He is involved in gold, electrogravity, and pyramidal refraction that he has seen in his dream. And he stumbled upon almost, yeah, you will introduce yourself then, Kevin. Okay, I'll let you introduce yourself. I'm stumbling a bit. Okay, over to you. Yeah,
okay.
If you just
first
grab
of all,
the microphone.
my system's called a mechanical alternating gyroscopic inertial compressor. It was mistyped earlier as induction. I don't call it that. It's an inertial compression system. It allows it to simplify our understanding of inertial physics and kinetics as gravitation. So that's one little point there. It's very important to simplify these fields of motion as easily as possible, just to make it easily understood. Now, my involvement in cannabis, I'm not a cannabis expert. I am a cannabis production expert, as so declared by a court. Justice Owen Flood declared me that. I would never consider myself to be an expert at anything. I'm a student.
Kevin, I have to stop you for a moment because your voice is coming out very, very faint. Could you speak louder, please, so that it comes out strong and clear in the recording?
How's that? I just moved my microphone.
Oh, that's better. Yeah.
Okay. So as I said, I'm not an expert in anything. I'm a student of life. I've started trying to understand a lot of the barriers in our current methodologies and our current understandings here. So again, it's the most important aspect of this is to learn how to simply teach this as applied biomechanics, because we can take what we've been doing through energetic transfer for the past 10, 20,000 years through agriculture, and we can learn to explain this chemistry and biology and the electromagnetic processes that are induced through these reactions, all as one concurrent level of study. And this is what I call physics, and this is kind of why when when I read the intro and I saw the term metaphysics written 3 times with my name introduced, I need to say clearly, I'm not a metaphysicist. I don't even know what that means. Metamaterials are transition state materials. These would be the atomically separated inductive noble metals that I work with. However, metaphysics to me is a misunderstanding of kinetic functions, of electromagnetism, of gravitation, of inertia, of molecular bonding in matter. It's simply a misunderstanding of what the term scalar physics represents. Because scalar physics is the fundamentals of force reactions. And again, when we look at our mind and our brainwave, we look at our 2 oscillating hemispheres and we see this bipolar inductive resonant function right inside of our brains, right inside of our cells, right inside everything that we do from, well, actually got a little head start this time, and I put together a couple of pictures here just to give an idea. This here's a 1952 picture of
Kevin, could you speak louder, please? It's not loud enough, okay. Isn't it, Fres?
You might need to turn your volume up on your system. I'm not sure. Fres and I were having a good conversation earlier without it.
Oh, okay, right. Yeah, okay. Maybe it's my headset. Yeah, go on then, Kevin. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay, this is a 1952 picture of what was called the electron. And as you can see, it's a radiating, cavitating void in the center here between 2 collapsing and 2 refracting hemispheric vortices. Now, this is polar refraction. This is how we compress an electrostatic function between 2 opposing magnetic fields. And then when these magnetic fields refract, the resounding vacuum that's induced through the polar compression results in decompression. Now this is a 1952 picture, electron microscope picture. I don't even know how they observed the light waves refracting through this imagery. However,
Kevin, would that be the same as a neutron at that center mass area or center void area?
A neutron, again, when we talk electron, neutron, proton, we're talking particles when we're actually talking about a scalar compression and these reactions to this compression. And for an electron to have a negative flux around it, this would essentially mean that all matter is negatively repelled, and this would stop matter from bonding. It would actually force matter apart. There's some very interesting polar differentiations that we need to understand, and this is through cubic wave fields. When we have this interaction between opposing fields, we have this right angle refraction, and this is, they move into this in quantum physics and into singularity, into all these other dynamics. But basically, this is the fundamentals of electromagnetic reactions. And when we start to examine cells, we see this same reaction happening. My system is very slow right now. I don't know what's going on. Every so often I get hit with there we go. So what we start to see is the splitting and formation along these two areas, these 2 lines of force, which is very, very similar to how cavitation occurs in 2 opposing oscillatory functions. We can start to look at this through the geometric refraction that we see in sacred geometry. We'd see this between 2 orbital bodies. Again, this is showing us a singularity between 2 refracting compression fields as a neutral cavity, which we would call or consider the neutron. A neutron would be observed in the formation as the potential for any flow of force. A neutral cavity is vacuum induction. You have a flow of force into the area that is diopposed to the flow of force as opposites attract. So we can start seeing all of this through this very simple mathematics that we see in Edley-Scalman's oscillatory electromagnetic generator. And basically, when we look at this, we look at oscillatory refraction as a compression field. We can start to see it in Victor Schauberger's water system. we start to see these same dynamics in crop circles as they're explaining two-polar refraction fields and how we utilize this understanding and tap our own flow of gravity by electrifying it. And this is done through these very similar torsion reactions. This is done through planetary function. This is done through atomic adhesion of noble metals. This is how our DNA is formed, through these same reactions. So when we begin to break this down, take 20, 30,000 years of agriculture, to the current knowledge and levels of understanding in electromagnetics and physics, and we start to couple and overlap all these fields of science, we start to see some very, very, very simple things here. With our planet, with specific axis points on it, we have specific reactions that occur. And interestingly enough, we have these specific huge sites on our planet, being Chinese huge pyramids. We have the Egyptian pyramids. We have in South America these different points on our planet. And this is because of these compression fields that we're able to split. And once we're able to understand how to split a pressure field, we learn what happens when we split a magnetic field. And I put a little video together on Facebook showing me snapping a magnet in half, a powerful one, and trying to put that together. And of course, you have two opposing fields of force. It won't go back together because you created two similar fields. This occurs when we split a magnetic wave as well. So once we learn these very, very simple biochemical reactions, and then we expand ourselves, expand our minds, and expand our understandings of electromagnetism based on the same mechanical oscillatory functions, we begin to see systems of putting some of this information together into usable force functions, where we have these rotating fields of force that are oscillating and become electromagnetically enhanced simply because of the fact that they're moving. And everything that moves is electromagnetic. So there's some very, very simple things to put in perspective here. I mean, let's talk about one of them for starters, as being a hydroelectric facility. See, we're already tapping the gravitational function of inertia when we build a dam. But these systems are built incorrectly because we can actually tap the gravitational field of the water through a vacuum interface where it's being pulled into a chamber and up over a barrier. We can then continue it down the barrier and tap the propulsion on the other side. Of course, that's how we use hydroelectrics now. But we can also be tapping all the pickup lines through vacuum compression where the flow of the water enters the gate. And in fact, we could create oscillatory cylindrical turbines all through the entire system. And instead of building these massive, huge dams and then putting all these dynamos all in a line across it, we can, and then of course we have to sustain this huge amount of compression and build this massive concrete retaining wall and then destroy a huge amount of ecostructure behind that area to hold the water. Instead of doing that, we can build a very deep capture area and then a tubular interface that goes up and then back down. And we can gate that entire tubular interface internally and turn it into turbines all the way through up and down the entire system. I'm not sure. Does somebody have a low battery, or was that me?
Press, because you're the host now, so
I just heard a ding like a low battery sound.
You need to manage the microphones. That is, you have to mute those who are making some noise.
Okay,
I thought I did.
So what we're talking about here is basic agriculture, learning how our bodies work, and cellular dynamics, which is something that I started on a long time ago, many decades ago, through biology and through agriculture. So the system of taking these basic natural functions that we use internally gastrointestinal acidification, our brain interferometry, our ability to induce electromagnetic reactions through our brain function and transmit these through our bodies. All of these now need to be applied. This is atomic molecular scale. So once we apply these same reactions into, say, a planetary perspective, what we start to see are things like this. We start to see cavitation. We start to see these induced mechanics in space, creating these torsion reactions. We start to see all of these polar reactions, very similar to what I've been describing through polar kinetics. And again, the research is showing that all of these reactions are inducing the same fields that induce the electrostatic, electrogravitational field force. So we've been shown, different algorithms, different mechanisms, different refraction systems that are all really showing us the ability to compress and refract torsion function. So we can take this right down to basics, to semantics, to speech. We can build a mathematical language based on these refractions, which is what sound dynamics are. We can put mathematical algorithms to these. We can create components for taking the same function and electrifying it. We can expand our understanding into the mechanics that are our universe, our fundamentals of movement and oscillatory compression, and we can apply the same dynamics to how our brain induces these electromagnetic reactions. And what we call this, this excitation really is where the lens is located in our brain, where we would refract against our pineal wall or cavity, and we would see the holographic show as our induced dream state. And again, when we're awake, through the refraction through our retinas and through our optic cavities, the refracted light creates a holographic rendition for our brain to recognize through light. Now, the planetary function to the light function are all based on these same twin toroidal inductive refractive patterns. And these are methods to electrify the same way that a molecule or a cell electrifies itself before splitting. It simply reproduces its own compression based on these inertial refractive qualities, which represent Einstein's relative dynamic of E squared. However, E squared doesn't represent energy. It represents electricity. The totality of energy is based on the totality of movement, which is in 6 phases of oscillatory compression. 6. So let's have a look at this. Let's have a look at how this works. When we move and we split polar waves, we're splitting through 6 fields of spin function. So our oscillatory function is actually splitting 6 other larger fields of force. Now these fields of force are all interacting, and they create these what we call fractal paradigms, fractal reactions, fractal realities. We create these interdimensional chasms and qualities that could have linear movements, allowing for different dimensional realities to exist. Now, again, it's pretty hard to describe in 3D mechanics when we're talking about 6D molecular or 6D oscillatory functions, creating the molecular design for electrification. So let's have a look inside of this. And we see inside the flower of life, we see this reaction that occurs. And this reaction, of course, it replicates this reaction, which is Nikola Tesla's bitoroidal LC shuttle circuit, which allows to split a wave and to create 2 oscillatory patterns, which allows you to pull the excess from the induced compression out of each side through the potential that's created. You draw in the opposing potential, of course, which is split. So interestingly enough, we see this in a lot of the buildings We see it a lot in the advanced, see this in a lot of the old understandings of the Templars and the structure of Washington and some of the other sites in the planet. I'm sure the Vatican is all lined up in the same way. But the reality is that this and this and this, they're all representing the same algorithm. And the same algorithm, the algorithm is representing this compression wave. And the light wave is induced by compressing and splitting and inverting and oscillating an opposing scalar function. So when I started to investigate this, I started to see all of these different mechanisms that were utilized to do the same thing over and over and over and over and over. Of course, I found some of the simplest ones available, and I started replicating just to test because I was seeing all this in my mind, in my head. When I dreamed, when I was awake, I was seeing these two opposing vortices, and I couldn't get them out of my head. What I drew down was this. This is how I tried to explain this to myself, what I was seeing. The function of water and the function of electricity, the function of how induced function creates two opposing reactions. And I started to see that we may not be carbon-based. We might be oxygen-based, and we're reading carbon as a reaction to the oxidative compression that is the conductive fields used to read matter. Again, it's starting to flip everything on its head. So mechanically, we can do this very simply on atomic scale, and we can do this in production through agriculture, which is what I'm doing with our polar metals and materials right here behind me. Fertilizer. This here is something we're studying all over the world, and people are testing it, and we're growing very clean and very, very vibrant food and medicine using our naturally acquired and naturally occurring polar separated noble metals. Here's why they work. Now again, we start to look at the molecular structure between nickel and copper, and when we start comparing it with the structure of gold, if I managed to put it down here, I was a little bit rushed today, but the structure of gold is resembles almost the Vala as well. I'm not sure if I did manage to put it in this folder, and I'm not searching through the rest because it's incredibly convoluted. But the energetic function is a transfer of the wave by splitting the wave and creating these refractive reactions. Now, when we have a toroid like this, a torus, when we bang a compression wave through this, what we have is we have an oscillatory compression that moves this way and circles around it. But we also have a reaction that moves around in a circle like this. Now, again, with a solid core, with a solid iron magma core and a thick solid mantle, if we had a compression wave here, like an earthquake, that compression wave should bounce through the core, it should be felt here, and then it should be bounced back, and we should have these residual echoes. But what actually occurs through these earthquakes, and the scientists, the geologists have developed a new mathematics explaining this called what do they call it? They call it. I'm just sorry. My dog's just distracted me and totally blew my focus here. So what we have is we have these two opposing surface waves that are moving opposed to each other. And of course, in earthquake science, the reaction does not go through the core. We have these observed reactions that show a non-continuity, and these other surface trajectories that occur through these other reactions. I spent quite a while trying to understand how cavitation is being ignored in physics, how cavitation is being absolutely removed as an inertial function. And in fact, when discussing it on Facebook, the word cavitation itself is underlined in red, showing it to not be a real word. So this makes it a little awkward. So the polar physics of the electromagnetics and what's described as metaphysics, we can now start to discuss as metamaterials. And these materials would be the transition state elements, materials that are used in our bodies for the transition of force functions intracellularly. And this is what we pull out of our food through gastrointestinal acidification. We create metallic chlorides, these bonds that are carried through our bloodstream, and then our polar grain function decouples these noble metals and allows them to act as these high spin, high field generators. And of course, in this, oh, okay, hey, here we go. I did find the pattern of gold. So this is how gold reacts. Gold reacts very similar to the function of the Tesla circuit, and creating a compression field, splitting a wave, and then creating two oscillatory paths where you can have these two diopposed functions of force, which create a inversion of potential. So the potential is going to create, this is essentially creating electromagnetic lever. We see it creates a disproportionary energetic function, and this is what the gold molecule does. It does the same thing. So once we begin to understand what a lever is and what a lever does, we can then begin to not just apply this through the rudimentary physics of gravitation and inertial production. We can apply to food production. We can apply to things like electromagnetic potential and produce heat and light, and we can use these very, very simple mechanisms to gain everything we need here, because these are all the same mechanics. I'm still trying to find the magic. The magic diagram here is really the most simple method of showing how to split the wave function. Of course, it looks again like I missed it in this one. Might be in another folder. Tesla's circuit here does the same thing. It splits the wave into two opposing fields, and one is moving one way and one is moving the other way. So when an electromagnetic wave moves in one direction, its kinetic inertia is displacing a gravitational function, and that gravitational function compresses back into the opposing direction of the movement. So what happens here between these two circuits, and these are circuits, is these lines of force move in opposite direction, creating kinetic inertia, creating compression in the opposing wave. And the opposing wave of compression electrifies the opposing circuit, creating a back EMF in the opposing method. So once this circuit, once you put gates on it, and it appears that that might be a gate right here, splitting the wave, as it may be a resistor, but once you gate this and put it in the switching circuit, and you start pulse firing this, you create an expansive decompression back and forth that excites the polar wave of gravity, the gravitational function. And this polar expansion compression, of course, creates an inversion, an acceleration, inversion, acceleration, inversion, acceleration of the gravitational wave. So each time you do that, you create the square of force back into yourself. And this can be drawn out of this through these two opposing lines, and the wave itself maintains a back EMF circulation, allowing for the magnetic wheel to electrify itself. So there's some very, very old methods that have been used and applied for many hundreds of years. This here being the oldest one I found, from 1871 by Daniel McFarland Cook. So pretty much these are all expressing the same polar dynamics that we see in our brain, and the same polar dynamics that we see in the transfer force functions in the cells, the same polar dynamics that are used on an atomic scale in wave compression algorithms through the scalar interferometric functions of DNA. DNA being inductive accelerating coils and self-regenerating coils when fed with the right frequency. So there's a lot of work to do to get back to our basic understanding of production, and then utilize this understanding for our food production, which then provides us with a healthier understanding of our minds and bodies, and of course the nutrition we need to heal ourselves and increase our brain interferometry. And this is what I've been doing for the past 5 years, is increasing my understanding, and then taking everything from astrophysical oscillatory functions to the atomic meta functions observed through magnetic transfer force or torsion reactions, and then simplify what's been confused as metaphysics and quantum dynamics, and explain it all through the basic relativity of inertia and kinetics, which is a very, very, very simple understanding here. We learn it when we're children. We learn it when we're trying to learn how to walk and run. The faster we move, the more it hurts when we fall. We learn it when we develop static electricity, and we're developing an electrostatic charge and absorbing this, containing it, and then diffusing it, an electron. So once we start to see the same dynamics post through all this ancient understanding, it is all described in a six-field geometric compression in a linear. I mean, this may look 2D, but to me it's flat. It's 1D surface. We lose, 87.5% of the, or 83.5% of the information when the information is being carried in the wave itself. You see, gravitation is actually a magnetic codex. It is an information wave. So once we start learning how to split and compress the wave, we do what a lever does. We can invert the function and we can see it. We can play with it and toggle it, compress it back and forth and agitate it. And we can start learning how our minds work and how, by using our minds, by understanding and controlling the electromagnetic functions, very similar to what Tesla's bipolar coil shows us. When we take the compression fields of our periodic table and we align them, we see these linear topography of these inertial field fluxes. On the outside, they seem to be much more powerful. We see these certain lines of noble gases along the lines of the methodology used to pull the waveform out. So it seems to be that the matter in transition into gas and gas into the energetic function allows us to understand the energetic function back into cellular dynamics through compression. And again, when we compare it to what we're doing here, where we are, how we're spinning, look at what we're seeing. We start seeing the same nonlinear topography in the functions of movements, and not just our planets, but in our entire universe. And once the powers that be stop hiding all this information from us, we'll be able to take some of this information and we'll be able to put it into use rather than just discussing it through say diagrams and videos like this. We'll be able to take these same compression fields that we're seeing through the advanced telescopic telemetry, and once again we're going to see the fact that we're looking back into ourselves through the genetic compression field that generates our cellular DNA. Our matter itself is all based on. It's the same compression that forms refraction, and the dynamics of this, the dynamics of movement itself, shows us that matter itself is continuously compressing as it moves. And this is something that we're going to need to understand through the topography of light. We're missing a huge amount of value here. We're missing, like I said, 83.5% of matter. We're not able to see anything that is not directly refracted into our oncoming wave, which is not allowing us to see in front of the sun as we're moving towards it, or behind ourselves. We're looking in lines of direction or flux, and these lines of flux are continuously moving on multi-dimensional lines of travel. And the dimension is simply a direction of travel. So when people say, hey, we're moving and we're going to the fifth dimension, let me explain that mind may be one dimension as a magnetic wave function, as a scalar flux, but matter is 6 waves of compression. And when we examine this in space, we can see that when we split the spatial compression field through any oscillatory function. And what we see are 6 fields of wave compression. And I see this all the time when I'm working with spin fields and when I have metals and metal materials locked in spin fields. What they'll do is they'll form into this helical oscillatory spin, and then as the wave decompresses and flattens out, it forms into this hexagon, the six polar waves of compression, all being spun by a polar excitation. And again, it's very, very simple, easy to see in matter by doing it, and it's easy to understand in phase conjugation of electromagnetic functions through electromagnetic force reactions. We can start seeing this in how our atomic forms go together through polypeptide bonds that form, through fatty acid bonds and these inductive noble metals. And then we can see how these polypeptide bonds form into a more complicated helical compression. And again, this helical compression is based on the larger helical oscillatory function that we exist in as an electrogravitational state. So now we have a transition here, a full ability to take these solar oscillatory compression fields, and we have an ability to induce them intracellularly and into agriculture, into cells, and then through this understanding, apply them through the general physics of what Tesla, Maxwell, Reed-Skallman, Poincare, Hubbard, Gray, LaViolette, many names and people have been using these applied reactions in order to create sustained vortices, to create sustained lift reactions, to Lesser Hendershot developed a very simple refracted, oops, I just killed that whole thing. Lesser Hendershot developed a very, very simple refractive motor that allowed him to oscillate a wave internally, which allowed him to, of course, reuse the wave. Now, when we start getting into some of these refractory reactions, we can see that that's crazy when I slip off out of the folder. We can start seeing how these same refractive inductive reactions can be used to sustain electromagnetic functions here. Similar to how Victor Schauberger did it, Tesla, many other people, and many names that I actually have put on Facebook on my page. So I found that to be an invaluable method of sharing information and testing mechanics. Anyway, my computer is slowed down massively here because I have so much information open, and there's quite a few people observing this information right now. So how you doing there, Fran? You want to unmute me for a second and let me get some water so I can get a drink and stop talking for a second?
You
sure. Bet. Yeah. Excellent, Kevin. But I have some questions for you, though.
Yes, perfect.
You want to go get water first to drink?
I have fresh water, yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Hey, Kevin, it's really fascinating watching what you were showing, the diagrams on how you correlate those energy flows, the tossing fields, and all with the flower of life schematics.
Yeah, they're all the same thing, so it's really easy to start to see it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now it's like that other, just like the Kabbalah, just like all these other.
So they're all toroids, aren't they?
See on the bottom here, I just have the same electrogravitational flux of a oscillatory function. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, I apply it to a scale here, to a pretty much something a fellow named Velko Milkovic. He developed something called dual lever pendulums and things like that. And I just saw a better way of doing it by putting wheels in instead of pendulums, because you can accelerate a wheel and then compress mass inertial ratios of force through acceleration, something you can't do with a pendulum. And you see, Velcro systems only reacted when the pendulum changed direction, because when the pendulum changes direction, it actually is weightless for a moment. And that weightlessness is what you would consider the 0 point based on our own equilibrium, but of course it's still moving. But that sort of gave me an idea one time to say, hey, apply this to a wheel with an imbalance. And then simply by spinning this wheel here with a small motor, this wheel creates compression along the shaft. There's a lever here with an axis of fulcrum, and this wheel spinning on the end of it is going to cause this to go back and forth. Very, very, very powerful, which of course creates gyroscopic compression between two dynamos. Now this could be put into any axle. This could be put into axles and generators, so you have the electromotive compression being used in delivery function, so on your wheels, you're now traveling, and you have the electromagnetic function that we utilize for standard onboard electromagnetic functions, which is what everybody needs. So I put a couple different very, very simple diagrams in. Let me just find the FESIG. There we go. Here it is. And with the oscillatory, there we go. With all of these different schematics in here, once again, I have a very, very simple method of applying all of this into a self-oscillating wheel and then maintaining it internally. Oh, good, I did the thing here. Oh yeah, I remember seeing this already. This inside of a hub of a wheel is a very, very simple mechanism, because what we have is we have these stationary motors with magnets on them, and these can be pulsed so that they spin. But as soon as they spin, they can create, see a better way of doing this. This is actually inverted. This should be the same polar function on these, so that when these individual motors spin, it causes this to go the same way. We want all the inertia going in the same direction. And so once we start pulsing these little magnetic motors, what we create is a movement with this armature, because it causes these wheels to spin, because they have magnets on them too. So this armature starts to spin. This whole cross section is on a bearing with a dynamo on the center. So once these wheels start to move, because they've got a big weight on them, a big counterbalance weight on them, it causes this whole armature to spin. So this whole armature starts to spin, and this dynamo now in the center starts to become electrified, which then begins to pulse feed all of these smaller little dynamos until this accelerates to the point where the compression of all this mass overtakes the electromagnetic function, and then all of these smaller little dynamos become electrostatic charging systems as well as the main dynamo. So now you've got an electromotive system spinning internally, creating a huge amount of inertia, which you can then use as a forward momentum for the wheels. This system would be very, very intriguing, and I sent some ideas to test the motors a while back. I never heard back from them the first time. The understanding is that once this gets going, this internal mechanism would be spinning at a high speed, and the wheel itself on the outside of it would need to be locked into place by electromagnets. So your gas pedal on the system would actually be a brake, because when you press the gas pedal, the magnetic brakes would pull away from the wheel itself, and the wheel would then start to spin. So you could have a one pedal system with an automatic braking mechanism. And again, whenever you're not moving, the system's still running. And so you now have an entire power generation system that only moves into locomotion, into the energetic transfer kinetics when you need to move. And it's a very, very simple and very, very a practical method of building a new system of not just cars, but all types of vehicles. And of course, you could turn this sideways. When you turn the system sideways, you in fact turn it into an electro-gravitational compression system, because it's going to spread gravity through the center. It's going to compress it laterally, and that inertia, here we go, here's a diagram for it, and that inertia is going to, through the spin field, it's going to be polarized into these coils. These coils feed back into the motor, accelerating the motor, accelerating the disc, and of course, these are vacuum induced. So what these do is they build a polar charge, and they suck the one side of the magnet in the direction while the other coil is pushing the other pole. So this creates a highly oscillatory self-induced compression system, which again produces the square force times mass times velocity, and then turns that initial compression into electricity through these coils that are picking up the magnetic flux. Over and over and over, the more this is Lester Hendershaw's very simple pattern. And I believe this is from the 1950s. So what we have is a switching circuit. When we pulse one way between this centered coil, you see here's a capacitor, and then this is moving this way, and of course this is moving this way, and then it goes back to your switching circuit. So through this pulse switch capacitor, we have a controlled circuit, which is now closed. It's a closed circuit. And what we now have here is a flux moving diopposed to each other. And now look at this. We have the infinity loop, same thing in the planets. And this loop is now allowing for the secondary conduit compression here and here to create a polar compression, electrify a secondary coil, which is now going to a load. So this is not interrupted. You see, this waveform here accelerates itself, and the inertial compression, the square of force times mass, is pulled out. Now, E equals mc squared is electricity, not the total value. The total value is double that. One is the back EMF, and the other is the electrical function. So if we keep the back EMF, we keep one electrical function, maintaining a back EMF, we can then use that back EMF function for auxiliary input and secondary function. And again, this is so simple and basic, and it shows us clearly how to tap planetary resonance through two opposed toroidal functions. And this is what we get on the planet. We just can only interact with one field at a time. It's so darn good. And that's basically as simple as it gets. So then we apply that on the cellular. This is Victor Schauberger's method using good water. And I've developed some much simpler functions than he's developed to utilize the same compression function of water, or the inertial compression of water in movement as a square force. And, I have a very interesting and simple schematic put together with the test, and it's going to use a small motor and a water barrel on a larger flywheel on a larger dynamo. And as the smaller motor accelerates the water starts to spin, very similar to Victor Schauberger's. And as the water starts to spin, the entire housing, including the flywheel, starts to spin along with the small motor powering it. So eventually, the small motor housing begins to catch up with the water, which, because of the motor moving inside of a moving field, the motor will feel that it's slowing down, and it will want to accelerate based on the potential movement of its opposing compression field. It's basically, again, tapping gravity the same way that we tap water. In the same way Nikola Tesla's system did the same thing. It brought the wave in, it split the wave here, and then it drew the ground wave in through the coil. And when we create a polar excitation and we oscillate it, what happens is we create a high frequency electromagnetic charge. We in fact create a standing capacitor. So what we need to do is we need to bring in a feed into that standing capacitor, and then we need to tap the feed. And this is what we can see that he did here. He tapped the ground feed on a ionic toroidal capacitor. So this is the same design as the other schematic. It's the same as his arc. It's the same function of tapping the gravitational compression of the square force, and we can see how it compresses. This is basically an algorithm for creating high frequency voltage. We can compress it through wave function, and this is basically what all of these diagrams represent, from Lead Scalman's magnetic oscillator to Victor Schauberger's hydrodynamic compression system. And now, okay, look at Victor's for a moment. Now imagine here that we put let's say we create a solid base here, and we put a small motor on top, and then we put an impeller here. So this impeller spins, and this entire cavity of water starts to spin as a vortex. Well, that creates compression. We put this whole thing on a bearing, and this entire system now wants to spin. So we put this whole system on a bearing, but we put it on a flywheel. And then we put that flywheel on a huge dynamo. And we have that little motor attached to a solid bracket here, so that when this starts to spin, that means the motor's spinning. And eventually the water is going to catch up to the motor, and the flywheel and the entire system is going to attempt to catch up to the motor. However, as soon as that starts to occur, the motor is going to sense the relative potential, and it's going to increase. So I'm trying to figure out, when does this motor blow up? Because as soon as this starts spinning around it, this motor is going to think it's going slower. It's going to feel like it's slowing down. So again, we can continue to tap this through using water barrels and small little impellers, or we can do the same thing using coils and electromagnetic functions. We just need to keep the field spinning and pulsing in order to keep expanding and collapsing the gravitational wave. By spinning it here, we're expanding and compressing. We're pulling the wave in through here and through here, and then we're compressing unilaterally through the center. So there's decompression in at each pole and compression out at the axis. And this again shows how cells divide. Any other questions? Somebody else jump in.
Kevin, what about this Russian scientist, Viktor Grabennikov? That's right, that's his name. I mean, have you studied his work of the natural phenomena of anti-gravitational and invisibility in insects?
Well,
have you studied that?
Well, I've gone through all of his work, but again, that's nothing new. We understand light through refraction, that light is not moving. We're moving, inducing light. The refractive quality allows us to see light. So by bending that wave using an electromagnetic function, we bend the ability of that light wave to refract in straight lines, which allows us not to see it. So this is very, very easy and simple understandings that apply to every level and to every level of physics. Every level of science right now can be explained through these dynamics that I'm explaining. Every science, every experiment, every physical function, every electromagnetic function, every astrophysical function, every cellular function, every atomic function. All of these are occurring through these scalar interfaces. And once we understand that this is all basically torsion-induced compression, we then can utilize mind over matter. We can utilize electromagnetic functions to change polar adhesion in matter, which is what I'm doing right now with my Ormus extraction. I'm utilizing cellular compression. I'm utilizing the actual production of matter through the protein bonds of DNA, and utilizing these torsion transfer inductive qualities through these polar extracted noble metals. So this is how the cells are growing and developing. Now from that, we're extracting fatty acids, essential oils that are used in healing, but these materials can also be used in clothing production, food and paper, agriculture, and I mean, I say energy, but again, that's useless. We have better methods. We need to burn anything to gain propulsion. We use the opposing reaction. Inducing and inducting are already very, very high kinetic velocity, and braking, we gain motion the same way.
Well, so, I asked about Viktor Grabennikov's works because he actually studied the time-warping force field generated by the secret geometric power of chitin. So I was just wondering, when you were showing the flower of life, schematics, whether it's got something to do with that as well, the geometric power.
Well, time is electrical, and see, time is induced by movement, and this is something that we understand when we're children. When we're late, the faster we get home, the faster we're moving, the quicker we'll be home. We might get home in time, and we won't get into trouble. So we have to understand time as velocity. Time as a sort of a nonlinear understanding of our nonlinear motion here. Because when we think we're moving in linear patterns, we're not. We're spinning in all these spin fields and not moving in straight lines at all. So
Kevin,
our understanding of time linear, it isn't really a linear event. Right.
I mean, you seem to be having so many creative insights compared to many scientists out there. You said that you had been taking this cannabis and the white powder of gold, the Ormus that you come up with, helped you.
I don't see, you're using the wrong terms again. I don't call it white powder of gold. I don't take white powder of gold.
Oh, yeah,
So what I
almost.
take
Okay,
is
you don't call it white powder gold.
No, I call
Right,
it
that's fine.
inductively separated elements. Now, white
Right.
powder of gold, you're only talking about one element.
Mhm.
Now,
Okay.
why would you eat only one kind of food? That doesn't make any sense. Taking monoatomic gold and only monoatomic gold, or calling it monoatomic when it's singular decoupled metal, again, is only going to create an imbalance in your system. You need to create a maintained, balanced system. And we can do that by maintaining a balanced intake of these materials. So what I take is a balanced intake of these materials as I get them from the ocean water in my environment, as these are provided at an incredibly high scale. I take the combination of these materials, which also includes zinc and magnesium, iron, and other matter that is not inductively decoupled. So this is what I
which you are able to let anyone have through the what you call, if they purchase it from you, you produce them to sell, right?
Yes.
Through Vancouver Island.
Yeah, I've been working in cannabis horticulture for quite a few decades. So now with all the medical permits and the VLPs, the licensed producers, coming on board here with the Canadian government licenses, I'm no longer dealing with just individuals with these smaller operations, but I'm dealing with some incredibly large production facilities and organizations that, of course, are using standardized agricultural fertilizer in the production. And we're giving these materials to some people that are quite sick. They have compromised immune systems. So why would you be feeding the plants that they're getting toxic fertilizer? So again, I've been using better quality material so that we can produce a better quality material so that we can heal people better. And with this, the understanding of how cannabis oils and for cancer functions comes right into play here through these inductively coupled noble metals, because these adhere to the fatty acids that are going in the plant.
Well, I just want to say to listeners that they can access your websites and your Facebook, because we have links at the FESIG site to Kevin Hay. I just want to say that. Okay, if you want to get these almost material from Kevin, you can go to his Vancouver Island link that is put in the website now in FESIG. I mean, it had been since Kevin was talking on the 27th meeting.
We had some changes in our site, but we have had some new products, and these new products are concentrates and some different sizes of that, and some different green products. But there's a lot of people in the world that really are they're dubious. They don't really want to spend money and on something that they're not sure about. So we have some very, very small packages available of some very powerful material that allow people to test this not only on themselves but on in agriculture, on plant studies, in cellular physiology, and it's using this that we see such great increases.
That's why I'm prompting listeners to go into your site and check it out. Kevin, I actually was asking you a question, but I couldn't get to finish my question, and you interjected on well, when I mentioned white powder gold. Okay, right, now we got it clear. Okay, now I just wanted to ask you, so it's not just the excitation of the pineal glands that you had due to the ingestion of this material. It's also because you were remembering, because you remembered that you are reincarnation of Otto Hahn, the German chemist who discovered nuclear fission.
No, I didn't say that. I was told that I was the reincarnation of this.
Right. So possibly because of that, you're remembering all this, all these amazing breakthrough ideas and creative scientific theories and whatever that you brought along with you.
Well, the information that I'm actually getting didn't exist in his lifetime. So as far as the polar astrophysical observations that I'm getting, the crude scalar function is a transition through space. It's a compression field. And once we can start to articulate our own brain function and ignite our hemispheric oscillation, what we can do is we can clean off our antenna. And we can begin to, just like right now, all the radio waves, all the songs, all the music that's ever been played is still playing. It's all bouncing around in radio waves. you need to calibrate and tune the antenna in order to hear that music. So once we can calibrate the brain waves and increase our brainwave function, we're going to be able to hear a lot more of the information that's embedded in the gravitational codex that we're splitting and moving through, because the compression field in space is an information carrier, and we can create these subharmonic vibrations through these electromagnetic excitations. We can actually send information through space in time many times faster than light. As Dr. Courtney Brown was doing at Emory University, they're using the CIA designed a remote viewing platform, which is scalar interferometry. And a fellow named Dick Argyle and several others are using brain wave interferometric functions to split, induce, and read, of course, light waves that were initiated and induced by us moving through that temporal plane many years ago. And it's through this reaction that we're able to view these oscillatory compression fields and then see them as a light wave. And again, this moves us past light. We need to move past light. We need to move past these terms that are being used, like electron, photon, graviton, and neutron. These words do not mean anything to me. These are not particles. These are reactions to phase conjugation, which are different polar torsion field functions refracting and colliding, creating these oscillatory refractive reactions that we can observe, some of them as light waves. We see some of these mechanisms as plasma, as matter, but most of what's happening out there and even around us, even in our own temporal time frame, we can't see it because we're moving away from this other matter. Even matter which is only a few atoms away from us would be invisible if we're moving away from it. We need to be moving toward these compression fields in order to refract and view them as points of light. Now, when we discuss points of light, we're discussing electrostatic. And both of these terms mean stationary, non-moving. So once we understand that, we can begin to grasp the basic fundamentals utilized to split a compression wave, which is what a lever represents. And then we can take that understanding into a gyroscopic mechanism, which is what gearing represents. And then we can start to break it down into the fundamentals of our geography or geometric understanding of refraction. And this is where sacred geometry hits the ground as an electrostatic function. And this is where we need to start applying these functions and use them to get secondary reactions. And this is where agriculture comes in. We've been doing it this way for already many tens of thousands of years. And I'm being called by my dog. Give me one moment.
I'll pass the microphone over to Frez. Frez, you have something exciting to report. Yeah, you were saying the Australians were having a breakthrough. So would you like to come?
Working.
Okay, Kevin, you have to stop screen share so Frez can do a
absolutely, and stop sharing.
Yeah.
Good.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you so much. It's
excellent.
So
We had some. Let's see if we get the pictures to come up. Here we go. We put together what we called our dynamic core, which basically started off with a static core, which was your basic antenna with a pickup coil. We basically did a feedback loop back to the pickup coil, and then that was our dynamic core that we put inside what would be a secondary coil in Tesla stuff. The idea was we were just multiplying, use compression and stuff to get a charge out of this. And we were looking to see if we could harvest electricity basically out of the ether. The interesting thing is we got one of our cohorts down in Australia took the design I was working on and simplified it. He says, there's too many parts, it's too complicated. Let's work with a very basic model and see what we get. And he put it together and put a meter on it. And the first thing that he noticed was the hands-free, that non-touch AC indicator probe was beeping, which is similar when you're testing your maggrav pulse and things like that. It's an electromagnetic pulse that basically actuates the a little magnet inside the probe. Well, he put his voltmeter onto it, and he's showing 4 volts production, which was pretty good. And but the thing was an AC current. We had thought that maybe when we put these together that we would have an AC current. We hadn't gone to the point of having to rectify it and put it out with the rest of the system. We figured it would self-dampen. That was the good news. The bad news was well, where are we picking this field up? Is it from the sun? Is it from the planet? Is it from the house? So the first thing to do was to eliminate the house current. And he went and basically threw veins in the house current, went back to test the device, and it quit functioning, which means that it wasn't the dynamic core that we thought we had in the simplified form. What he had done is basically had a receiver, and it was picking up the AC 60 cycle in the house. That was maybe the bad news. Also the good news, it's actually a very important part in the electrical circuit, meaning he didn't get the dynamic core up and running, but he did get the wireless receiver at this point. It's at 4 volts. It's not anything great, but it's small, and it's pretty innocuous and something that's not going to hurt you to play with. And from there, we can work with it. So he's working on seeing if he can increase the voltage by probably decreasing the amperage and stepping up the power from it. In the next week or so, what we're going to be looking at is to see if it'll sustain an LED light or several of them. And the other that we're going to be working on is rectifying that AC current so that it's a DC, just so that it can go forward. And that's about where we're at on it. So the good news is, yes, we got some power out of it. It's more than the little Alex beads that we were playing with earlier, which is half of it. The bad news was it was picking up the current from the house current. So interesting stuff. Yes, we're going from there, and it's looking like we're going to have to do a little more beefing up with the capacitors and with the coils and that type of stuff. But it's a nice. Back to Kevin.
Back to Kevin. Back to Kevin. Press says. Go on then, Kevin.
I'll ask Kevin a real quick question. We were talking earlier. He was showing some healing repair to his head, an incident, big cut, and he put some of the materials on. And then a little bit later, he showed some of this was earlier conversation we had, some of the strawberries and things that he experimenting with. And I was wondering if you kind of quickly through that, if you'd be interested in doing that.
Certainly. One sec here. So my head wound here, this was a pretty good whack. It was an axe and a baseball bat and a steel pipe and brass knuckles, and all within a few minutes. I'm not quite sure what did the damage, but what I ended up doing was putting my Ormus cream concentrate on the wounds, and just covering them up really well, and just smearing it on. It would dry out like clay, and then I would smear more on it. Where the cut was, these materials were absorbed straight into the blood, straight into the living tissue. And where all the dead, dry tissue is, they would collect and stick. And they would even stick on the metal staples. The time frame between this picture here and this picture right here is 12 days. So
wow.
Yeah, the healing effect of these materials, it's I mean, it can't be understated. The I did the same with my cat. My cat had surgery, and it was a really, really nasty wound. So, of course,
Sorry, Kevin, who was that? Who was wounded? It wasn't you, was it?
yeah, that was me.
Wow, my God, that must have hurt.
Yeah, 6 months ago.
Oh, God. What happened?
Well, I'm not going to get into it right now.
I have a quick question for you, Kevin.
Yeah.
You know, on your Ormus, I initially ordered your Ormus in the 125 milliliter because I wasn't, sure about, how much I wanted to take and everything else. And when I went to reorder, I had to order the same size, and I wanted to order the 500 milliliter, but I had to order 4 of the small ones because it said shipping of the half liter and the liter size is unavailable to the U.S. On your website.
Yeah, there might have been some errors done. That website was just put up, so the measurements weren't properly entered, so there was no shipping. That's all changed now. You can go back on there now and check it all out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like you, Ron, I want to get some for myself. Wow, this is really amazing testimony of the stuff.
Yeah, what I did here is I just kept layering it on my cat as well. And but when I took the cat bath, there's one area right here where my cat could actually bend her head around and breathe. So she was licking the end off. This was the only area that had any sort of marking or incision or any sort of wound on it when I took her back to get staples out. All this other area totally healed out. And it was so quick. It was just so very, very, very quick and clean.
Can you move a little closer to your mic, please?
Yeah, I'm right beside it. I'm sitting right beside my.
I mean, you just sprinkle the stuffs on the cat's wound, on the stitches.
No, I showed pictures earlier of it being cream, being layered on, just like on my head. It's not sprinkled on at all. This is not added as a powder. It's added as a thick cream.
Okay.
Hold on, let's see. See, here we go. This is my second application right here, thick cream.
Okay, I got it. I see it now.
Yeah, and then that dries up. It dries up.
Okay.
See how loose it is?
Yep.
Very, very creamy. I layered it on, and then of course it dries up and it turns into almost that clay-looking patch. Here's day 3. 3 days after surgery, and look, the center of the wound is almost all healed.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it accelerates it just unbelievably well. And
did you say this compound is cannabis-based?
No, this is Ormus.
Okay.
This is Vancouver Island Ormus cream concentrate. It's nothing to do with cannabis, but we use this to grow cannabis. But we also use it for food production. See, this is what happens when we feed it to our plants. They become, they become massive. That's my apple tree. My apple tree goes, every year if I feed it Ormus, it goes huge apples. If I don't, it just grows normal size small ones. But everywhere we use it, we see a different growth rate. We see accelerated yields, and we're seeing incredibly nutritious food with just unbelievable smells. Like these strawberries, you can smell them. You can smell them, many, many feet away. It's not like you have to put your nose right up to them. It's amazing.
Press, this is more effective than the GANs we produce.
I have pictures of GANs that people have done independently with GANs. They compared our Ormus with GANs, and it's night and day. It is absolutely night and day. I can pull the image up right here. Independent GANs versus Ormus. I think I have it. This is where GANs. Let's see. GANs versus Ormus. There's a picture. Look at that. There it is. So this was sent independently on Facebook. The side on the left was given Ormus. And
Ormus left, GANs right.
Yeah.
Got it.
I was told by this person, Joyce, yesterday that this is still in bloom. And this picture was sent to me months ago. No, 8 weeks ago or more. She says that this is still in bloom. The flowers are coming on.
Wow.
And
Kevin, what GANs do you use? CO2, CH3, CO?
I don't. I'm explaining that I don't use GANs. I don't use GANs.
But you say GANs water on the right.
Right. This is an independent test by somebody else because I don't do tests, you see. I don't need to. I know what I'm doing and I'm proceeding. I don't have room to do tests to convince other people. I convince other people by the results of our production.
I got you, because it's Joyce who's messing around with GANs. Yeah.
Other people need to convince themselves. I don't have time to do this. They need to themselves. So this is other people showing independent testing.
Yeah, I can see. It's Joyce Elkins doing the GANs water, comparing with the Ormus.
And
yeah,
underneath
got
here,
it.
the one here, this is 3 cannabis plants that were all the same. This one was fed Ormus, only Ormus and water. And these ones were fed just water, and this was 12 days apart, 12 days from first treatment. So I was sent these ones from another person as well.
Cool.
When we take a look at the atomic makeup of the different products, comparing the Ormus with the ganses are more singular. They may have 1 or 2 elements in it, whereas the Ormus he's working with is a collection of all the elements from the seawater, from the ocean water. He's working with a broad spectrum.
Well,
some of the work that I did this last year was with the different ganses, with the vegetable crops and stuff here at our nursery. And the production, the size and stuff wasn't that great, but the flavors were better than with the commercial fertilizers. So what picture that he showed with the flower and the plant is very similar to what we saw with the ganses that we did in our nursery.
So are you just using GANs water, or are you using a material that you're extracting doing a GAN cyclonic vortex reaction?
No, right now, last year's experiment was strictly we would separate the ganses, get rid of the salt in the solution, similar to what you do with your Ormus, and then basically only the clear water, and let the ganses drop to the bottom, and then just water with the clear water off the top. So it's a very limited in line of elements that we're putting in, because we're dealing with zinc, iron, silver, copper primarily.
Okay, so you're only feeding them the clear water.
Correct.
So that's magnetized demineralized water, because you're electromagnetically inverting the materials from the water hydride and pulling them out.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what are you doing?
Exactly.
With the material?
Excuse me, another question?
Because the material is what you need to use to grow your stuff, not the water. The water is just a conduit for a carrier for pressure, the same way we use water in hydroelectrics.
Yeah, we were basically looking to see how far you could stretch the GANs off the bottom without overloading the plants, to see if it was an increase in friction, etc. It was you can water a tremendous amount of crops with very little material, actual solids, doing this, and that was basically the request foundation.
Well, the salts aren't necessary, because the chloride bonds are once again, they're just a carrier for a transition state to make it water soluble or blood soluble in humans, acidically soluble in plants. So what we're talking about, again, when you're referring to GANs, you almost sound like you're talking about a plasma state, but you're in fact talking about minerals, about decoupled, atomically sensitive, highly energized oscillatory atoms. And I've got containers of these right beside me that what I've done is I've managed to take, there's the reaction right now. Okay, this will be a great little thing to show. This year.
Okay, I'm gonna pin the video.
Stop sharing screen there.
Okay, these are the same materials, because what I've done here is if I shake this one up, this one here will follow the solution right away, and this one here, if I shake up, this will stay murky for several days until it starts to separate. That separation was actually weak. You see how this one here is already separating on the bottom. The only difference between these two bottles, this one won't separate. It will stay in that solution, which is how I normally ship our Ormus material. This here is the same amount of matter as is in this bottle. This one here was frozen. And through the hydride reaction of thermodynamics, what we have is a inversion of the molecular bonds of the water. where when we cool water down and condense it, it contracts. When we heat it, it evaporates, expands, and it repels. So we're actually changing the polarity in water through the electromagnetic functions of heat. This is a very interesting test here because it not only shows how the manna was created through condensation in the saltwater floor of the desert, providing the coupling necessary to create this gel-like fluid state. This here would be what we would find at the base of glaciers when the glaciers melt. So the glaciers aren't really pushing up and compressing all these materials. These materials are in the actual water itself and then frozen into it. And when the water melts, it falls out of it in this compressed state here. So we get these pooling off from these glacier melts for this high density mineral. And this is how it's forming. It's actually repelled out of the water through the freezing process. It's no longer coupled to the hydride reaction. Something that's very, very interesting to start playing with is when you're playing with.
Got a quick question on that specific.
Yeah.
I lost my mic. Anyway, can you revert it back to that lightweight, fluffy after it's been frozen, or is it now in the heavy state and not returnable to that fluffy state?
Well, I'm going to mess around with it and do some thermal tests on it. I was just actually doing these tests recently because I have a lot of material that was going out to a bunch of shows, and one of them was in Edmonton. I was sending a lot of samples to Edmonton, and these were 1 ounce sample bottles like the ones I just showed you. And I thought, well, you know, if this material gets frozen in transit, is there going to be a change in the actual material itself and how it's bonded to the water? Because of my understanding of how this material is forming through the condensation of water on desert, creating a hydride reaction through that compression, I thought, well, you know, let's reverse that. Let's see if I can mess around with it. So I threw some in the deep freeze, and wow, to my surprise, it fell right out of the solution. And again, I haven't had time to get back on it. I've been working on my butt off, getting caught up on a bunch of projects here, and I have several clients that I've been behind on with my time. So I've been really trying to put some time away and do a lot more experiments. But once again, it's experimentation is what you do when you got a full belly and time on your hand, you know.
Yeah. Kevin, it's really good to see you relax this time and you're not so stressed with strap for time.
I got a lot of
it's wonderful to have you here with us. I mean, I got to close the meeting soon because Fred says we have to shut early today. It's too long a recording. Hey, it's really lovely. Anytime you want to come back to speak, just let me know, Kevin, bro. Okay, and it's really nice to have you. Fred, do you want to interact more with Kevin? And before we close, you want to ask questions? And Ron, I'm sure you have a couple of things you want to ask Kevin.
Yeah, I had one question on that head wound and the wound that the cat had.
Yeah.
That was the Ormus concentrate that you used on yourself and on the cat for the heat.
Yeah, and that's fully edible. Like, that's the wonderful thing about this is it's a fully edible cream concentrate.
Yeah, I got a small one of those from you too. It's a 15 gram.
Okay. Hey, I've been sending them out a little bit for people to try. Let me tell you, it is the best burn cream I've ever seen. And I've talked to some doctors, and they told me the same thing. They can't believe what it does. And
it's so incredible seeing those pictures you showed just now.
Well, what's more incredible are the stories I'm getting from people, because I've been sending this cream concentrate to a doctor in Africa named Dr. Ekpo. And Dr. Ekpo has been using this for all sorts of epidemiological reactions. And he says that umbilical sepsis with infant newborns is a very, very common problem there, because the umbilical cord, the stub, it rots, and the babies get blood poisoning. So what he's been doing is putting this Ormus cream into the belly button, and it's been drawing the poison out and drying up the nub and pulling the poison right out of the babies. And he said they could see it in the arms and the veins very, very, very quickly. how the poison becomes drawn right out of the bloodstream, back down towards and out of the system through right through the umbilical cord. So it's moving away. It's moving back into natural healing and away from all these topical steroids and these other creams and toxic medications that they're giving.
Yeah.
So to see and hear the results that I'm getting from experts in the medical field, and then of course talking and discussing and sharing and sending these materials to others all over the world to test them. I've had some of the people in Sacramento at the plant physiology labs absolutely stunned by some of the results. And again,
I am sure
we're doing shows
Kevin,
right now. It's great.
Can I request while you talk about this, would you be able to pull up on the screen and share screen on how listeners can get hold of this cream, like going into your website on that exact link where people can purchase it?
Let me just get yeah.
It's going to help a lot of people.
Am I actually sharing? Can you see my screen right now?
No.
Hang on a second. Back to me. I gotta go. Yeah.
Click on share screen on the green icon below.
Oh, there it is. Okay. Just get on here. www.island. Yeah, and it's funny when they do that. It's interesting. As soon as I get on here, there we go.
Oh, right.
There's my,
So, everybody, this is where you can get it from Kevin.
I've got my plant fertilizer in here. I've got green products in here. We've got different sizes of creams. We've got different types of creams.
I lost my screen completely.
Well, it's recorded, Ron.
Oh, I know how to get to his site. I've been on there more than once.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was updated. We had some issues with the shipping, and we had some the wrong sizes and stuff in, so it wasn't allowing for the bottles to go through. But I'm pretty sure all that's remedied, and anytime I get any information from.
So which one is the exact cream that you use for your gash on the head?
The Armis cream concentrate.
Okay. Right. Almost cream concentrate. Wonderful.
Kilos,
Kevin?
Yeah.
Kevin, we last time we talked about the difference between using the different caustics in producing the ganses, or producing the ormises. You use a calcium base?
Well, we're doing two different things. We're doing a torsion hydroxy base, and then we're using calcium base for the agriculture.
You brought up a little bit there.
Hydroxy base for the human grade, and a calcium hydroxy base for the plant grade.
Yeah, I was quite impressed when you went to the calcium. With my background, I went, oh, that was a smooth move for the plants.
Well, it's amazing what we're actually getting out as far as calcium and zinc. I think each one is actually we're getting high levels of magnesium as well. But again, these are really, really important for not just our physiological function, but for plants. So there seems to be a very, very nice blend at the right ratios for healing cells from our natural surroundings here. But I understand that comes from our extremely high gold content out in our hills, which is I'm just happy to be or lucky enough to be in an area that has almost a natural deposit and then a natural system of collection here.
How many?
Kevin, I have some friends who have cancer or suffering from cancer. What would you recommend?
Well,
Cancer?
again, what they should be doing is they should be researching all of the available information that explains what cancer is as an acidic fungal reaction. And once they learn how to alkalize their bodies, they can stop that reaction from occurring inside their bodies. The systemic medication, what's being used currently is very, very toxic. There are choices of 3 very, very toxic remedies, each of which create cancer by acidifying your body. So understanding cancer through the mitochondrial reaction in our DNA or adenosine triphosphate inversion. Once we understand electromagnetic functions, we understand what cancer is. And once we understand what cancer is, we can learn how to invert all of those reactions systemically and sustain the alkaline reaction inside our bodies. So for people that have been diagnosed, again, it's specific to, and unfortunately, it's specific to location. A lot of people will be criminalized for accessing or trying to access cannabis oil. But understanding the polypeptide bonds that are occurring in these fatty acids and the essential noble elements in these electromagnetic bonds that are associated with these high spin frequencies. Once we understand that, we can start realizing that we can get these noble metals from other sources, like salmon oils, like other natural plant oils, and they're bonded to other fatty acids as well. So we can start learning how this is occurring, and we can start acidifying or deacidifying our bodies and alkalizing our bodies through these natural fatty acid, high nutritional supplements that are available. I mean, flaxseed oil is one of them. But again, we have transfers and functions in our bodies that require an understanding of how our bodies are absorbing the dynamic torsion frequencies and functions to invert and reproduce cells. And we're getting this from the food we eat. So when we replace our food with toxic medication and expect our cells to get better, we're not going to get better. I take the Ormus elements every day. I take them every night before I go to sleep, and half the times I take them in the day sometimes, or sometime during the day, just because I have access to them here.
Does the Ormus help with sleep, Kevin?
It's been reported to help several people with sleep disorders.
Because I have friends who can't sleep, who's got insomnia.
Yeah, I found that when I take Ormus, I sleep better because of the induced brain interferometry, the regulating of the brain hemispheres. Because of these.
Which particular type of the Ormus that we see in your shopping cart?
Oh, just the liquid, the basic substrate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. I will recommend.
Kevin, what is the parts per million on your Ormus as far as the monoatomic gold?
Well, what we received from the USD labs was they could not read 2.97% of the matter. So the combined total monatomic decoupled material in that substrate would be that volume that they couldn't read. I don't have the technology to read decoupled noble metals, and this is the thing. This has been one of the recurring themes: is that you need a plasma fusion process to actually bond the noble metals together into a diatomic element. At that point, you can refract a wave off them and read them as a diatomic element.
The reason I asked was because I bought some monoatomic gold from a place in Ventura, California, and it was clear. You know, it was clear, and it came with an eyedropper, and they recommended a quarter to a half teaspoon a day instead of the 1 teaspoon like your Ormus.
And it was totally clear. What did they tell what parts per million they had on there?
Yeah, they said 10 parts per million.
10 parts. I wonder how they were testing that.
I'm not sure, but it's perfectly clear. There is no white coloration like there is with yours.
Because 10 parts per million is like, I mean, I'm talking 2.97%, not parts per million. Parts per million. If there's 10 parts per million, yeah, there's not much there at all. And they might be basing that on how much gold they actually acidified into auric chloride and then decoupled. But it all depends on what type of mechanism.
Well, how would you relate 2.97% to parts per million then? And I don't.
Well,
I'm not a chemist.
Well, that's almost 3 parts per 100. So
okay.
Yeah, and so you just put a bunch of zeros on that.
All right.
The amount of material that they could not read was nearly 3%, and that gave us pretty much of a base value of what they were actually not seeing.
Okay.
The solution was mostly water, even though we sent a very thick solution. It was 90-some% water, and then of course of the available noble metals, I got the full list of everything that they found in it. And interestingly enough, of the solid material, if we had sent the actual salt, the dehydrated salt, to the labs, we would get a full spectrometry of everything in it. We would get right across the board. It would show platinum, it would show gold, it would show every single element across the board that's adhered to the salt as a chloride-based metal. However, once it's pulled apart, once it's decoupled, we could only read a very small part of the copper and a very small part of the nickel that was left. There was absolutely no other transition elements left over in the material, which was just incredible to see those changes occur. And this is all based on the wave spectrometry that they're using to analyze the material.
That's it. That's interesting. I'm taking one other item, and it's called shilajit. It's from the Himalayas. It's like a black tar substance, and I only take a tiny little bit of that once in the morning with a cup of hot tea and honey.
Is it salty?
Pardon me?
Is it salty?
No, it's extremely bitter.
Okay.
It's not salty at all. It's very bitter. Because I've tasted it on my tongue before. You actually break off a little piece and put it into something hot, like hot water for tea or something like that to dissolve.
So how long have you been taking that, Ron? Do you feel any effects?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
More energy.
I'll check with
of course,
you.
it's a combination of ormus and shilajit both.
What I urge people to do when they're testing monatomic elements, I like the cellular reactions that you can observe and see. If you can do, say, a control group of water and then 2 different types of ormus beside it, you can start to gauge the effectiveness of the actual inductive noble metals that are available in the solution, simply based on the reactions that the cells are gaining. And so I really feel agriculture is a very, very important method of moving into this understanding and getting on top of all of this information, because we can produce as we go, we can learn and heal as we go, we can apply as we go, and through this we pretty much we problem solve as we go. And
sure. Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to say hi to Colin. Hi, Colin. Colin Black is here. Colin, how are you?
Hello. Yes.
Yeah, you are an expert in GANs production.
Yes. Yeah.
Kevin,
Well,
I don't know at what point you came in, Colin, because I was asked Kevin and about the comparison of ormus and GANs when he was showing those pictures of how the ormus is a lot more effective in the experimentation of the growth of plants and stuff, So you have been doing, that one. So you've been doing a lot of experiments yourself on the GANs you produce, Colin.
I sure have. Yeah. Yeah. And all this, I just popped in here and all these images are just, we just talked about this in class today. We had a really beautiful, a visualization, video of the torus and the Merkaba and the formation of energies, and it was incredible. But we were talking about the interaction of emotional fields, and I've been working with the GANs in art. So I've been incorporating the GANs.
That's right.
And painting and
in your paintings,
yeah. So I want to bring this into. I would like to take this because Kevin has the hemp adobe product that he's been working with. And I would like to take it into sculpture full board and start to because we use water as the it's the additive in the hemp adobe. When it cures, we can train the walls to be of a certain frequency so that you can have certain rooms that you walk into that hold this frequency. So I'm really interested in all of this.
That's why I invited you to join in, because I know what you do, and knowing Kevin and what he's sharing is amazing. You would be interested. Kevin, the symbols you're showing right now, it's fascinating. What origin is that? The language?
Phoenician, and this is where we get phonetics.
Sorry, phonetics. What language is that?
I'd say Phoenician.
Phoenician. Okay, I hear you.
Or phonics, if you want to just ask it.
It's like the alphabets of the Phoenician language.
It almost looks like something out of a star language too, like something other planetary.
Well, it's a wave compression algorithm, so it's a base fundamental mathematics based on wave compression. And this is where we get these refractive points and certain specific algorithms that allow us to create harmonics and understand harmonics. So this would be something that we could embed in a computer system, and then we could look for reciprocations based on these values, and then based on these values, we could create a language string and communicate.
That fourth image on the bottom, the fourth square on the bottom. It looks, that one.
Yeah.
That one caught my eye immediately.
Mm-hmm. What's that? Wrong.
The same thing. Wave dynamic like this through the center.
Yeah.
And but this is actually it's through the center, refracts here laterally, right? Comes in and refracts.
And then there was one above it that reminded me of an antenna.
I was just banging away at that one little folder. Oops. There it is. Propulsion. There's propulsion technology. This was a pretty good one, but I had a lot of information in.
You've got a lot of files.
Well, I've got.
Oh my gosh! Yes, this is amazing. Beautiful.
This one, I just slapped this together really quickly for this event. I've got terabytes and terabytes and terabytes full of this up. I actually just get sucked into it and through it. I just start accumulating more data.
What have you got? Multiple hard drives?
Yeah, I've got a couple ones that are unplugged, wrapped in tin foil, then they're put in Mylar bags and vacuum sealed, and then they're put in another Mylar bag and vacuum sealed, and then stuck in a cupboard. So just to make sure I have a few terabytes of information put away. I spent years. I had maybe six or 8 hard drives go all within a space of a few months after we had this electromagnetic device put across the wires from my house. Had a lot of electromagnetic issues here, so I had a lot of information and videos destroyed. So I'm just trying to compile data and save it a little better now. I lost a lot of video of work and stuff back then. So
maybe what you need to do is create a grid, like a copper grid.
Yeah, Faraday.
Yeah, like a Faraday cage for the wall ceiling.
Well, I already wrapped all of my other stuff up and put it away. So I bought an extra hard drive and copied everything and put it away. But there's so much information that I get sent by people, because what I do is I'm pulling a lot of strings on people. It's pulling on things that they know inherently and they haven't been taught properly. So what they start doing is sharing information with me and sharing personal papers they're writing or medical trials they're engaged in, or some very, very, I will send pictures from inside the pyramids from a friend of mine who's a doctor and has access. And he was showing me some pictures of cellular regeneration that they've observed in scar tissue walls after applying the Ormus. And, you know, there's papers being written and submitted to the American Medical Journal right now. And he's now working in psychiatric medicine because in such changes and shifts in neural inductive resonance functions and stabilization of the brain to such a degree.
On that topic, Kevin, I mean, I've got ADHD, bipolar people who need healing.
Well,
So I was just
wondering.
wondering.
Doctors that aren't calling them by those names because we're all those things. You know, we're all those things, and we've created this string of medicative presumptions where, okay, you have this, take this pill. You need a name to take the pill, you see.
I know.
So give it, and then give it.
I don't
So
take
does it help? Does it help if I tell them to go get your Ormus?
We've had people we've had children that have stopped having seizures. We've absolutely changed families' lives, and it's nice to do this from so far away. I've managed to have touch a lot of people and have them help others and help heal others.
Wonderful. Okay, I'll point them to your direction.
Yeah.
I met people that were on death's door that were actually coming online and saying goodbye to everybody, and that's how I met them. And I was just blown away. I'm like, here, listen, just give me your address, email me your address right now. I'll make sure you get some, because you know, if it helps, it helps. If it doesn't, I'm so sorry. I'm going to do the best. I'm going to try.
Hey guys, I have to wrap up the meeting because it's been like more than 2 hours now. 2 hours coming to 2.5 hours now. It's really lovely having you with us, Kevin. As I said, you got so much creativity up there in your brain, and what you're sharing is amazing. Colleen, it's so good to have you with us. Wish you were here with us earlier so we could.
Yes, I didn't realize. I'm so sorry. I got the time wrong on that. But
it's okay. We love to see your artwork at some point.
You can see my desktop here.
I can probably I can start the video. I just
just a quick one because we have to wrap up.
Yeah. There's one. This is the one that I'm working on right now that has
cool. Look at that.
About
beautiful
coming true. Oh, it's amazing. There's a lot of things that are happening with this.
I imagine.
So I really do look forward to, when's your next meeting? Are you having another one soon?
Yes. Hey, I must tell you, the next one will be very, very exciting. Do come back, all of you. The next one, we have James Gilliland of ET Ranch, ESATI Ranch.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah. I'll
definitely love him. Yeah. So he's with us. Kevin, would you come back on the 5th of April?
Like I said, I've got so much work, so I can't.
I can imagine.
And
yet you found time to be with us. We are so grateful. Thank you. We're so honored.
I'm going to go now and work for about 10 hours. So get some.
Oh, gosh. You need to take
Kevin, before you take off, real quick, Kevin, on the strawberries you were feeding with your Ormus, how often, those were going to basically travel, and your Ormus water, how often were they fed the Ormus?
They got maybe 6 feedings over 5 months, I guess.
Wow.
I'll give them a little bit to wake them up as soon as I start seeing new shoots coming out, which should be in the next week or so. And then right over, say, September, I might feed them once a month. I might just fill up some buckets and pour it over them once a month. But it's every other day they get in the hose. So.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet. Goes a long way. Little goes a long way.
Kevin, a quick question. The Ormus that I got from you, if I wanted to use it on a couple of very young plants, I've got young trees that I just planted that they're growing. What kind of a, say in a gallon of water, how much
around a teaspoon. But when you're talking trees, I'd say do about 2 tablespoons per 5-gallon bucket. So give each tree a couple 5-gallon buckets. So say 4 tablespoons per each tree, and give them good saturation. And you're going to watch a much faster growth rate for radio.
Okay. Well, these are very small. I grew them inside the house. They're outside.
Oh, okay. So yeah, a teaspoon a gallon then.
Okay.
You bet.
All right.
Right. I guess I don't need to go around the table because everyone has to say here now already. Colin, would you be able to tell the goddesses of GANs about James Gilliland speaking in FESIG in the next meeting on the 5th? And after James, we have very exciting speakers coming in. After James, there will be Adrian Espinosa. Have you heard of him? Super Soldier Talk with James Ring. He has access to files, the ACIO files. Ron, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and he's got actually Skynet. You know as well, Colin.
Yeah, well, I'm familiar with it, but I'll have to look into it more before the next. Yeah,
and it's really exciting. The next few speakers, the next few meetings, be on the lookout and join us, okay? And Adrian, and then the next one would be after Adrian Espinosa. He'll be talking about the parallel realities and stuff, so and about the future, about the PPAI. Artificial intelligence, of course, that's what they are dealing with. And also about free energy and how, of course, this is about free energy and how the future is going to be like. So it's going to be very interesting. And Kevin, join us. Make it a point. Take a break. Don't work so hard. Okay. And then we have, we're going to have the next speaker called Mike Upstone. Okay. He runs a trust. And he's got some of the most amazing scientists and researchers as well that he's putting together. So that's the lineup for you. If you go to FESIG site, you will be able to see their lineup, okay, and join us. And thank you so much, everyone, brothers and sisters here of FESIG. And I am so happy that we have this meeting, and so grateful and honored to Kevin for spending his most valuable time with us. Until the next meeting, there be no other business. We adjourn the meeting to the 5th of April. Okay. James Gilliland will be talking about ETs and ET technology and all that sort of stuff. It'll be so interesting. Thank you all, and much love to you, my brothers and sisters. Thank you.
Namaste.
Thank you.
Namaste. You can stop recording now.